3 coins in the fountain, each one seeking happiness, thrown by 3 hopeful lovers. Which one will the fountain bless?
How many of you remember that wonderful song, 3 Coins in a Fountain by the Four Aces? Well, nowadays it might be rewritten as 3 Bitcoins in a fountain. I'm Robin Saunders, and cybersecurity is my passion. Okay, full disclosure, I am not a financial expert or an advisor, and this presentation is for informational purposes only. The purpose of the presentation is to help you understand digital currency, the way that it works, and the cybersecurity risks associated with it. Since the beginning of time, currencies have been a part of our lives. Let's look at the cavemen and women. They used the barter system, and the barter system involved goods and services being exchanged with each other. You might want to exchange 5 oranges for 7 apples, but the barter system fell out of use because it had some glaring flaws. People's requirements often didn't coincide with what other people needed, and there was no common measure of value. And probably one of the most difficult things is not everything could be subdivided, especially animals. Now, in 110 BC, an official currency was minted, and in 250 AD, gold-plated florins were introduced, and this was used across most of Europe. From 1680 to 1980, paper currency gained wide popularity, and it was used across the world, and obviously we still use it today. Modern currency includes banknotes, which are paper, obviously, and coins and credit cards, and even now something called a digital wallet, just to name a few. And these digital wallets, I think you'll know some of the names like PayPal, Apple Pay, or Amazon Pay. Now, all of this is controlled by banks and government, and this means that there is a central authority that makes the rules for all of how this works. But there can be problems, and things can go wrong. You can have a technical issue with the bank. Some of us have. I bet all of us have experienced that. Your user account can be hacked, and your transfer limits on the account could be exceeded. How many of you have gone to an ATM to take out money, and all of a sudden you've exceeded your daily limit? This is why some people believe that the future of currency lies in cryptocurrency. Now, cryptocurrency is digital money, and all that means is that there's no physical coin or bill. It's all online. The interesting thing is that none of those bank problems are associated with the crypto world. It's very different. And as of 2020, according to the data from CoinMarketCap, there are more than 7,800 different cryptocurrencies in existence. And there are more and more that are popping up every single day, and each has a slightly different use case. Now, you might recognize some of these names: Bitcoin, Ethereum, Bitcoin Cash, Litecoin, Tezos, EOS, EasyCash. Well, each is a different type of cryptocurrency, and some are based on different technologies or have new features that allow them to do more than just transfer value. But at its core, cryptocurrency is very, very similar to currency, except that it does not have a physical embodiment. It exists only in the digital world, and it uses cryptography to be able to work. Now, it is especially designed for people that shop on the internet because it was originally designed to be used on the internet. But let's take a look at exactly why cryptocurrency is so special. A crypto, which is a single unit of cryptocurrency, is a digital currency that can be used to buy goods and services or trade them for profit. The digital currency uses something called cryptography, which is a science of keeping information secure by transforming it into a mathematical code that is unreadable for anybody except the intended recipients. Let's look at what cryptography really does.
Word cryptography, your brain probably jumps to someone sitting in a dark room staring at lines of code. You might also think of highly trained software engineers protecting endless amounts of data to keep it safe in digital infrastructure. Cryptography is all of that in some degree, but it's also a root methodology to modern coding. Let's try to understand some basic principles of cryptology to gain a greater understanding of this old but new technological workflow. There are three key principles of cryptography: encryption, authentication, and integrity. Encryption is the process of converting data into an unreadable form in order to protect its privacy during data transfer, reception, and storage. Encrypted data has to be decrypted, a process called decryption. Encryption and decryption require a key to be used in the process so that while the data may seem scrambled, it can still be read and understood by the desired recipients. Authentication is the process of ensuring that the sender claimed in a string of data is, in fact, the actual sender. This works by the sending computer or device performing some action that the receiver knows only the correct sender can do. When the receiver sees that action, it authenticates the message. The actual process is much more complex, but this explanation summarizes the workflow. Finally, integrity. Proper cryptography also ensures message integrity, which means that the messages are communicated accurately and not intercepted or altered on the communication path. Usually, this is done by hashing the data, which cryptographically maps out its path. Taking these principles into actuality requires a wealth of technical skill.
Now, it does require a wealth of technical skill because cryptography is a very complex concept that keeps information secret. Cryptocurrency uses cryptological functions to conduct mathematical transactions in order to try to keep it secret as well. Cryptocurrencies also use something called blockchain technology, which allows the digital information to be distributed but not copied. Blockchain technology was created to be the backbone of this new type of the internet, to gain decentralization, transparency, and immutability. Let's look at how blockchain works.
Blockchain is one of the biggest buzzwords today. It is considered one of the most promising emerging technologies, a technology that has the potential to transform business as we know it. But what is blockchain? Simply explained, blockchain is a database or digital ledger of transactions. But this database is different from traditional databases as we know them. In a traditional database, data is stored on a centralized server with a single authority empowered to change or delete the data. In blockchain, the data is shared across a network of computers that all run on a special software that ensures all data remains identical. That's not all. Data is secured using cryptography and can only be changed by people authorized to do so. Before we delve further into how blockchain technology works, let's start by understanding what a block is. A block is a piece of information that is made up of data. The block contains a timestamp, which is used to create what is called the hash of the block. The block also has the hash of the previous block. There are various kinds of data that can be stored in a block. The data can be related to medical records, election information, smart contracts, or land records. The hash is the unique identity of a block, much like the fingerprint of a human being. Every block also contains the hash of the previous block. This is what creates a chain of interconnected blocks and gives this technology its name. Every time a new block is added, a timestamp is added to all the transactions. So, how does blockchain really work? Let's take the example of Bob. Bob wants to buy a house. He finds a house that he likes and decides to buy it. When he buys the house, the owner, Tom, has to sign a document that says Bob now owns the house. Tom also has to provide proof that when he bought the house, the previous owner signed a similar document giving him ownership of the house. This document also has to be given to Bob for his records. In essence, the house has to have proof of the chain of ownership all the way to the beginning. Blockchain is like that. For each unit of the chain, there is a cryptographically verifiable chain of the history of ownership. In blockchain, the registry is distributed to everybody. This means that anyone can verify, at any time, how many units are in circulation, who owns them, and what the history of their ownership is. Transactions are not just verified by one single authority, but by the consensus of multiple users. Because the information is stored across various computers, it makes it very hard for anyone to change or delete the data without others on the network noticing. The result? The blockchain helps to securely store and validate sensitive information in a way that establishes trust. It can also help to reduce costs, improve speed, and enhance productivity.
A blockchain, in the simplest terms, is a time-stamped series of records basically records of data that's managed by a cluster of computers that are not owned by a single entity. Each of the blocks are filled with data, and they're secured and bound to each other using cryptographic principles, which is really the chain. Let's use Bitcoin as an example, and let's see how this actually works.
Bitcoin is an online currency with a security system run by a massive network of total strangers. Trusting strangers with your digital information may sound silly, but it's actually a revolution in distributed computing. It's all based on the blockchain, an open ledger that stores a history of financial transactions. But blockchains can be adapted to store any kind of digital information imaginable, which means that systems like Bitcoin could be the future of all secure digital transactions. Old security models focus on locking people out. Bitcoin's model focuses on letting everyone in. It uses self-interest and greed to secure your Bitcoins. And amazingly, this works. For the first time, you don't need trust to share or update your digital records. To understand why and how, you need to understand the Bitcoin blockchain. If you have Bitcoins, what you really have is a private key, half of a digital signature that proves you own a particular Bitcoin. The other half is a public key. A record of the public key is stored in the blockchain. Individual blocks contain multiple transactions, each of which refers to an earlier record in the chain. When you want to purchase something with Bitcoins, you broadcast a request. The request is received by all the computers on the Bitcoin peer-to-peer network. These computers and their owners are called miners. Miners scoop up the most recent requests into a block. The miners run the new block and the previous blocks through a set of calculations called hash functions. It's a competition, with all the miners racing to solve a complex cryptographic puzzle. The more computing power you have, the more likely you are to solve it first. After solving a block, the miner tacks it on to the end of the blockchain. Then they broadcast it to their peers, who check the work and start using the new version of the blockchain. The first miner to solve a block is rewarded with some newly minted Bitcoins. But minting coins isn't the only point of mining. The puzzles are so complex that every new block makes the previous blocks and the whole blockchain more secure. Hacking the blockchain would require tremendous speed. In order to alter just one transaction, an attacker would have to change the information in that block and in every block that comes after it, all before the blockchain is updated. With countless miners working on the chain simultaneously, this would require massive amounts of computing power, more than half of the power being committed to the Bitcoin network at any given time. The self-interest of the individual miners adds up, creating a selfish, self-protecting, secure system. personal allegiance is replaced with mathematical confidence. The Bitcoin blockchain is a public database that everyone can see, anyone can add to, and no one can destroy.
Now, cryptocurrencies use an online ledger with strong cryptography. Boy, I'm stumbling over these words, to secure online transactions. And it looks a lot like this. And unlike a bank's ledger, a crypto blockchain is distributed across the entire network. And as you saw in the last video, everyone can see what's going on. Now, here are some features about cryptocurrency that you might like to know. First of all, there is a limit on how many units can exist. Now, with Bitcoin, it's 21 million units. You can easily verify the transfer of funds, and hashtag algorithms that Bitcoin use make it very easy for users to determine if the transaction is valid or not. It's also a decentralized process. Unlike a normal bank, it is independent of any sort of centralized authority. So, what makes it so special? Well, first of all, there is little to no transaction cost. Second of all, you have access to your Bitcoin 24/7. Next, there are no limits on purchases or withdrawals. There's a freedom for anyone to use this. And there are very, very fast, almost instantaneous international transactions. And if you've ever done a transaction overseas, I've done many of them, it takes a few days, and sometimes it takes longer than that. Now, Bitcoin was launched in 2008, and it was the first cryptocurrency, and it still remains by far the most influential and best known. It's probably the one that you've heard of. Let's look at how it was first launched. This is a very interesting story.
Money makes the world go around, but we could be moving towards a world without cash. From credit cards to Apple Pay and cryptocurrency like Bitcoin, cash is no longer king.
When I say Bitcoin, you say what? Pizza.
This is Laszlo Hanyet of Jacksonville, and it was a pizza delivery order 9 years ago that began the cryptocurrency craze.
I just told people I wanted a pizza and I want to pay with Bitcoin. I didn't want a gift card. I didn't want some weird exchange. I wanted to give you Bitcoin and you give me pizza.
The 37-year-old computer programmer created this thread in an online forum and posted that he would pay someone 10,000 Bitcoins for a couple of pizzas. A user from England took him up on the offer, and these pizzas were delivered to Hanyet's home. At the time, the 10,000 Bitcoins were worth about $40. Today, they would be worth $100 million.
People ask me, oh man, what an idiot. Why didn't you keep that Bitcoin? And it's like, well, you know, somebody had to start it off.
Yep, he's right. Someone had to start it off, but I bet he regrets it every single day. Now, today, cryptocurrencies have become a global phenomena, and they're known to most people. And as I said before, there are more than 7,800 cryptocurrencies that are available now, and more are being added every single day. Now, the total value of all cryptocurrencies as of April 13th, 2021, which is yesterday, was more than $2.2 trillion, according to CoinMarketCap. And the total value of those that are Bitcoins is about 1.2 trillion. People ask me, how do I buy cryptocurrency? And there are some cryptocurrencies, including Bitcoin, that are available for purchase in US dollars, but others will require you to pay in Bitcoins or other types of cryptocurrency. Now, to buy cryptocurrencies, you need a wallet, which is an online app that can hold your currency. And generally what happens is that you create an account on an exchange, and then you can transfer real money to buy cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin and Ethereum. There are many exchanges. Coinbase is one, TradeStation, Robinhood, SoFi, and eToro are some of the better known cryptocurrency trading exchanges that are available if you decide you want to exchange in cryptocurrencies. But are cryptocurrencies legal? Well, there's no question that they're legal in the United States. However, China has essentially banned their use. And ultimately, the legality and whether or not they're legal depends on each country. So, as always, buyer beware. Now, let's go on to the important stuff. What are the cybersecurity threats and how do you protect yourself? Well, first, if you're looking to buy a cryptocurrency in an ICO, read the fine print in the company's prospectus for this information. Be very careful. Read. Who owns the company? An identified and well-known owner is a good positive sign. Are there other major investors who are investing in it? It's also a good sign if there are well-known investors who want a piece of this currency. Now, will you own a stake in the company, or will you just be owning the currency or tokens? This distinction is important because owning a stake means that you'll get to participate in its earnings, while buying tokens simply means that you're entitled to use them like chips at a casino. Is the currency already developed, or is the company looking to raise money to develop it? The further along the product, the less likely the risk. Look at the perspectives. Comb through it. The more detail it has, the better your chances that it's legitimate. Even if legitimacy doesn't mean even if it is legitimate, it doesn't necessarily mean that the currency will succeed. There's an entirely separate question, and that requires a lot of market savvy. So be very, very careful. Know what you're getting yourself into. And with anything that happens in cyberspace, there is always a chance that it can be hacked. Now, since Bitcoin came into existence in 2009, the network has not been hacked, and but there has been some instances of exchanges or wallets that are being hacked, but never the entire network. Other exchanges that were once considered to be unhackable are now getting hacked because people are finding some unintentional software bugs in them. But there is one major problem, and that's passwords. Lost passwords have locked millionaires out of many Bitcoin fortunes. And realize that there's nobody to call. If you lose your password, you lose your Bitcoin. Here's a little bit of a story.
Hi, I'm Nathaniel Popper, a technology reporter for the New York Times. Here's my article. Stefan Thomas, a German-born programmer living in San Francisco, has 2 guesses left to figure out a password that is worth, as of this week, about $220 million. The password will let him unlock a small hard drive, known as an iron key, which contains the private keys to a digital wallet that holds 7,002 Bitcoin. While the price of Bitcoin dropped sharply on Monday, it is still up more than 50% from just a month ago, when it passed its previous all-time high of around $20,000. The problem is that Mr. Thomas, years ago, lost the paper where he wrote down the password for his iron key.
Yikes. And as you heard the person say, that was when Bitcoin was worth about $20,000 a coin. Now it's worth about $55,000 for one Bitcoin. $55,000 a Bitcoin, and that is as of April 18th, 2021. Cryptocurrencies are the first alternative to the traditional banking system, and they have some powerful advantages over previous payment methods. Think of them as Money 2.0, which is a new kind of cash that's native to the internet and gives it the potential to be the fastest, easiest, cheapest, and safest and most universal way to exchange money that the world has ever seen. Digital currencies provide equality of opportunity regardless of where you were born or where you live. So think about them, consider them, but as always, be cyber smart, but be senior smart, and read all of the fine print and use your common sense. And soon, see you in cyberspace.
3 coins in the fountain, through the ripples how they shine. Just one wish will be granted. One heart will